Hello, and welcome to this episode of Therapist Sanctuary. My name is Jennifer Westcott, and I'm the host. And this is a podcast for therapists to talk about all kinds of things about why they're therapists, and for people who've been to therapy, which I happen to believe pretty much covers the entire planet, but maybe not. Apparently, there are people that don't go to therapy. Sometimes I wish I was one of them. Anyway, I am here today with my guest, Lauren Moore. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you.
And Lauren is a therapist in the same town that I live in. We've known each other for quite a few years now, and we're going to just chat about you
Yeah, yay. And counseling.
and counseling and how it all came to be.
Yeah.
So, I do kind of know a bit of your story, but I'm not going to pretend to know all of it. But why don't we start with tell us, like, just maybe describe what you do, what kind of counseling you do.
Yeah.
Start
So
there.
I'm in private practice, and being in a small town, I feel like I do a little bit of everything, and work with children and teens with a family focus. So parents are involved if I am seeing kids and youth. And then, yeah, it's like 50-50 between younger people and adults. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And then I do a lot of EMDR. I feel like that is my main focus, and people come asking about EMDR, but it's not the only thing. Like it's woven in to what we're trying to figure out and what the person wants. So I'm sure I'll explain that more throughout. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So take me back to before you were a counselor. Okay, let's just go all the way back. Let's
Yep.
go all the way back to your childhood. What was life like? And looking back now, were can you see why you become a counselor?
Yes. Yeah. So my younger brother and and my two parents, we grew up, am I allowed to say in Ottawa? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Grew up in Ottawa, and had a cabin, had a cottage. When you're in BC, you say cabin, but back when I was growing up, it was a cottage. And so we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time growing up at the cottage. We were pretty much there every single weekend. And so I feel like when you say childhood, it was school or being at the cottage. Those were the two places it
Mm.
was. And we
And
just
was that like Muskoka? Is that what it's called?
it it was closer to Ottawa than Muskoka was. It was
Okay.
just this little lake that when we were there, it had 5 cabins on it. I
Mm.
really have moved out west because I keep saying cabins. It was a really small lake. I swam across it. That was my favorite thing to do up until
Mm.
we sold it a couple of years, or my parents sold it a couple of years ago. But it was really small, so it wasn't busy. You weren't allowed power boats on it. So we just, yeah, hung out and played in the forest a lot, my brother and I. So, and then we were the only family that skied in during the winter. And so we'd ski in, like be there for the weekend and then ski out and, yeah, have fast food on the way home because we were so hungry. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So that was, and then, yeah, just played lots of sports. And when I was 8, I got type 1 diabetes. And so sports ended up being something that, yeah, my parents were just with me a lot during sports because it was just hard to manage diabetes and sport. So when I think of all the sports, I have this vision of them there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, like how did you know something was wrong?
Some people's story is it takes months and months or sometimes a year to find out. But because it ran in my mom's family, we knew right away as soon as you almost in an elementary school, the teachers and the parents pick up because you go pee nonstop, and you're going to the
Oh,
bathroom and drinking so much water. Your body just doesn't have the insulin to be able to manage the sugar. So you just are constantly in the washroom, and we figured that out really quick. And
wow.
yeah, so my mom and I went to our family doctor, and I was like diagnosed that afternoon. So it was quick compared to some people.
When did it sink in? Kind of the magnitude of it.
Um, I think that's what led to eventually counseling was I don't think it actually sunk in until my mom was a counselor and had was in the middle of her EMDR training. I
Oh
was
my goodness. I
early
didn't
20.
know I didn't know she did EMDR. I thought
Yeah.
your mom was like a school counselor, but she also worked outside of the schools.
She was a teacher to start. She
Yeah,
started in the schools, and then on her way of almost becoming kind of doing the admin side of in the school system,
yeah.
she switched and became a um, executive coach. And she started working in executive coaching, and then she also did her she did that while she was doing her master's in counseling.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Sorry, I interrupt you. Okay, so
oh no.
when you discovered the magnitude, let's
Was
go back to that.
when she was doing her EMDR training and she found someone in Ottawa who she thought I should go just try it out with. And it hit me then because EMDR as, assumes that these events that we have, we carry the weight of those in terms of how our body is holding on to the information. And
Mhm.
so as soon as the therapist kind of activated the diabetes distress and asked me to remember my diagnosis story and paired it with the I am broken or I am permanently damaged core belief that I didn't even know was there. I had two stabbing pains here and here. And then we did the eye movement and then it dissolved. And ever since that moment, because I had always carried around that um, overwhelm, shock, and fear, I think, from the very moment I got it, I was so full of that that I couldn't understand the magnitude until it was dissolved.
Wow. Like when you say you had this pain in your head, you were pointing at your head,
Yep.
like just during the EMDR or before
Yep.
that?
Yep, just during the EMDR. So
Wow.
she activated the distress that I didn't know was there because I was just carrying it around. And it was two stabbing pains here and here. Like I rated it 10 out of 10. But over the course of an hour, it dissolved. I never went back to her. It was like a single session, so powerful, it changed my life. And then after so many years of with type 1 diabetes, you just have so much care from your families, from all these teams. It's just so much care all the time. But I
Does it feel
never,
like care?
well, it didn't when I was carrying around all the distress because then I
Right.
felt judged. I felt like I wasn't doing it good enough. It felt like I think
There was something wrong with you. Like,
yeah, all the overwhelm and the emotion attached to it or the distress was blocking me from having space from, I think, interacting with the care or even leaning into it. And so then when it was dissolved, then it felt like a 180 and I just started caring for diabetes in a completely different way and I had space and
wow.
then it yeah, it kind of that was a
Wow.
massive turning point.
What word would you have used before EMDR in place of care?
Mm, um, the diabetes clinic. Like
Yeah.
probably just
Heavy
the
on the diabetes.
well, to the point that when I was little, and I remember this clearly, my doctor at the time was the kindest. Like I remember his name. I think one of his kids has moved on to also becoming an endocrinologist. And he would look at me and he'd look at all these perfectly written little blood sugars in the notebook, and then he'd have the blood test and he'd know that my blood sugars weren't good because there's this average 3 month blood sugar that you get. And so I have this really high 3 month average blood sugar and all these perfectly written out 5.5 blood sugars all day. And he would just be looking at me and yeah, he's like, it, like trying not to say, I know you're like lying and you're just writing out these booklets, right? But
Aw.
It was just,
That's kind of heartbreaking. Like you would make the numbers up to kind of so that you wouldn't have it.
or just so that I looked like I was doing a good job.
Oh God. Like it was your fault and you wanted to
Or just
be,
that I wasn't doing it. Like you're supposed to write your blood sugars out. And
yeah.
I even don't do that now because I feel like that doesn't work for me. And now I just have this, I do look at it every 5 seconds. If I ever look down, I'm just looking at my blood sugar.
Yeah.
And I look at it all the time, but I don't have time to write it down. And so like little 8-year-old me didn't know that, there was permission for that. And so you were supposed to, and you had to write it out. So there's this feeling of I'm not doing good enough because I feel like I'm failing this program that you're supposed
Oh
to be on.
God.
Yeah,
Like that self-recrimination starts early over something you have absolutely no control over.
yeah, yeah. And if I had done EMDR and like who knows what would have, right? Who knows how I would have my lens, how that would have been different on engaging in all that support. Because now it feels like a gift to have that care and um all those like the endocrinologist to reach out to for help. But at the time it just felt like, yeah, oh,
Yeah.
here I am, I'm going to be judged again, or
Yeah, I'm doing it wrong.
yep, or I'm not doing enough, or yeah.
Oh, that's kind of heartbreaking. And back then, not that you're that old, but really, therapy as a commonplace thing for children is so new still,
Yep.
right? That's how we met was being in the same place working with kids. But back when you were little, it probably wasn't commonplace yet. So, yeah, when you say I wonder, like is that what you were referring to? Like I wonder what life would have been like if I'd had EMDR at age 8?
Yeah, yeah. And getting to do that now with these little 8-year-olds who have type 1, like it is just like a gift.
Full
Yeah,
circle.
yeah, yeah. And then it's like that whole um having to do your own work to make sure that like I'm not being triggered at all sitting across from these little kids with type 1 and their experiences. So,
Oh my God. Like you go out to the waiting room and just burst out crying.
yeah. Yeah. It's good that I think it's good that I see I like I work in private practice, not at the diabetes clinic, because I'm sure I would still be triggered going in
Oh yeah.
for
And
no
then,
fault, by no one's fault, right? Like it was just that was
oh,
how I felt, even though that was no one's intention to make you feel that way. Um, but that was my lens on it. So,
well, and as a little kid, if you're the only person you know that has something that requires all this paraphernalia all the time, it is,
yep.
then like how could you not sort of feel awful about it all?
Right. Yeah, you felt different for sure. Felt like you didn't belong. You had to eat snacks at different times than even just the whole school system being so like we have snack at 10:30, we have lunch here. So it was embarrassing to have to go have snacks at different times and yeah, but yeah, it
Uh,
definitely it made me, and because no one can ever see it other than the like the pods and the sensors that you can sometimes see now more on
mhm.
people with type 1, it always working in schools and working with anyone, children, adults, it I feel that has gifted that reminder of you have no idea what someone is, yeah, what's going on. And I feel like that has, yeah, that I feel was a huge push into counseling, was just knowing that and knowing that it's helpful to help people work through what is hard for them and is what they are carrying around in their backpacks. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you like when you think about your little 8-year-old self? Like, if you had met someone like you and had EMDR, what do you think you wouldn't have had to kind of go through?
Um, feeling guilty about like I should be doing something more or feeling like I'm missing something. Uh like
Mm.
I feel distressed, and so I think the assumption is, oh, well then I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't feel this distress. And so versus just I'm distressed about this and that's okay. That there's
Mm.
not something that I'm like should be doing that I'm missing a giant memo on or something.
Oh my God. Like if I grew up feeling like I was missing something and there's something I should be doing every single minute or, from an illness, I would be frantic all the time. How did you even sleep?
I think I was carrying so much stress around. Which is probably why that because not everyone in EMDR has a stabbing pain. That memory held a lot. I was surprised at how much was the body was holding on to in that moment. So yeah.
Okay, I want to go on a bit of a tangent with you because I find this really interesting. I have quite a lot of trauma from childhood, from sexual abuse. And you and I were in a group not long ago, and you actually did a process on me, deep brain
Rearranging.
reorienting. I could want to say deep brain thrombosis, but that's not right.
That sounds good.
Okay. And what struck me most about that was when I think about things in the past, I often get a headache. It's one of the first things that happens. And no
Mm.
one has ever been able to explain to me why that is. And then when I hear you say that, you got a headache, and it makes me think about it again. And then when we were doing that process of DBR, I got that headache, but then it went away.
Mm.
What is with these headaches? And like, what is that?
So not all the time, and it's never I don't think there's ever an always, but
Right.
when someone 85% of the time in EMDR, I'll speak to EMDR more because I'm done my training. In EMDR,
Mm.
right behind the headache, that's often a question is what's right behind the headache? And often I talk about the attachment conflict of their it, parents, family is put up on this pedestal because we need them. And if needs aren't being met or that biological pull to them is not, if it's not an okay place to lean into, then there's an attachment conflict and there's like this, and that is sometimes behind the headache.
That being shock or like a
Um,
stunned feeling.
Yeah, sometimes shock, and then that's what DBR would look at, and then EMDR would look at how that interaction or the hundreds of interactions, right? Like how that was stored in the person's file folder. So was that a
Um,
moment of I am powerless, I am helpless, or was it I am worthless or I am bad because this need isn't being met? So the same moment or the same type of moment can have a different label on it. And it's that negative core belief that can activate the distress. And then eye movement can help someone dissolve that.
wow.
Hmm. So it's very like I think the thing I like about EMDR is there is so much body work. Like you do pay attention to that headache, where you do get curious about that because it's information. It's something important. It came up.
Yeah, like I noticed it for a long time, but it took me a while to realize, oh, it is so predictably happening as soon as I start talking about what happened in my childhood.
Okay.
Like the level of headache, it's like instant and it's strong. And nobody could ever, like, yeah, I still am like, wow, that is so fascinating to me. And I struggled a little bit with EMDR. It's weird. I always feel bad saying this because I love EMDR and I know it's effective, and it was effective with me. Like it actually really did everything it said it was going to do for me, except what I found was really hard is I really needed to tell the story because it was so disjointed and there was it was almost like where I went for some EMDR, there was no room for talking about what happened. So
Oh,
it was almost like I got relief from the symptoms of trauma, but I still had this overwhelming need to put this story together.
okay.
It was weird.
And and I think that's where maybe that's why I said EMDR in a mix. Like it's one of the things.
Yeah.
And then if there is that need to tell a story, then you do that. And sometimes it's gifting the younger parts to hold on to the buzzers because parts work is often involved. And so you get younger parts to come and share their story and talk because then you're gifting the younger parts a chance to speak. And then you let the younger parts drop into the felt sense of what that's like to speak.
Oh my God. When's my next appointment? I d- that is beautiful because I think when it gets too like everything in our field, people can get really purist where it's
Mm,
like it's I do EMDR, that's all I do, or I do. But yeah, like you said, when you weave it, I think you said,
mm.
into sessions with the client sort of getting to say what they need, it's yeah, I would totally try it again because it really did give me symptom relief and it connected a lot of dots for me. But I
Mm.
had heard, um, off and on over the years that it works better with single incident traumas or something really specific. And if you have this sort of, like I did, ongoing traumatic events all the time through childhood, that it can be harder for, what do you think of that? What's your opinion on that?
Um, it the advanced trainings in EMDR touch on the doing EMDR with all the different parts around the table.
Ah,
And so the single incident might be one part
yeah.
changing the image that they're holding on to. But if there's different parts that have been fragmented, then it's gifting them a chance to step up to the EMDR session, look through the eyes and do their own EMDR and building all the parts at the table, giving them a chance to like give permission to have the other person do EMDR or I'm saying that in a simplified way, but giving them a chance to process and giving them a chance and then noticing how the interactions of the you now and the younger part, what it's like to be together up in the kind of dissociative table, even
Oh
if there's
my
no
God. Yes.
dissociation,
Love
right?
it.
Yeah.
When I did hypnotherapy training, the woman who trained me out of Toronto, she does EMDR with hypnosis a lot. Like,
Okay.
can you imagine? Like, it would just deepen the whole. Yeah, things in
Sure.
combo are so cool because most therapists who are just regular therapists are not going to only use one thing. None of us are Marsha Linehan or, like
No. Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah.
Peter Levine. Like we're mixing a lot of things together, and I think that mixing and recipe building is so I could nerd out on that all day.
I was gonna say that's what I love about like the art form of counseling because you're trying to, yeah.
You're trying to make a recipe for your client for what they need, right?
Yeah. That's what I love. That's what I love about it. I think that's what yeah, just love all the trainings. You're just constantly, sometimes though that can get overwhelming because then there's too many options and then it's a little bit like, ah,
You forget to be a person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which most people need a heavy dose. So do we of just want to, yeah. Now, what do you think of DBR? Tell me about your experience with deep brain reorienting.
Well, I personally got to be the demo person at
Ooh,
one of the trainings. And,
awesome.
and one of my counselor buddies from grad school was watching, and she just called me right after and was just like, "What just happened?" Like it was like a part of you, because I've done EMDR on all the topics that I brought to DBR sessions to focus on. And it just felt like it did. It went down. I used to say EMDR was root of the dandelion because you were getting to those things that were below the surface, emotions, cognitive beliefs, kind of what was the charge on the experiences. But now I feel like there's this new option to go down to the midbrain and look for shock. Because before you have thoughts and emotions, which is very like upper level,
Right. Cognitive.
yeah, it you experience, we all have these natural tendencies to lean into the needs that we lean into experiences and people to get our needs met. And when they're not met, we experience shock. And that all happens before the information goes up to the higher, like, yeah,
To
to our,
be processed in the upper levels of the brain.
yeah,
It's like that brain stem stuff, the automatic stuff,
yeah.
the
And
breathing and blood flow and heart rate and
and
the auto
shock.
and shock. Yeah.
Right. And shock, we usually experience it so fast that we experience it and then it sends the information up and then it gets filtered and we have thoughts and emotions about it. So shock, it just when you gift it time and space and you just slow everything down, it will dissolve. Or the defenses that have been created because the shock was there, they also can dissolve.
Well,
So
I experienced it that night that I actually put you on the spot that night and said, "Hey, can I be a demo client and you can do this?" I didn't even give you any warning and you did it. Yeah, you. Anyway, I experienced such a relief from that. Like we only did a little 20-minute thing, didn't we?
yeah. And
But
the
it
headache,
really affected me. Like I
yeah.
felt it shift right from that and it didn't come back.
Okay. Yeah, like that when the shock, when you open the file folder on, even if you're doing DBR on a current experience, when you open up the file folder to that information, it it's like it's like EMDR. Like if you, I always in EMDR I say if you shine the light on one tree, you're really reprocessing the whole forest, or there's an opportunity to. And I feel like that's with DBR. If the shock is if it's in the same file folder, then those defenses will release. And that's what I felt. Like I felt when especially in the one where Dr. Corrigan was uh, doing DBR on me, it I just felt like I was like the Michelin, you know that like the puffy
Yeah.
Michelin white, I want to say marshmallow man, but I'm not, I forget the name of that. But it felt like after the shock was dissolved, it felt like at first I remember saying, I feel like I'm a beanstalk and I'm growing. And then I felt like I was just taking up space. That's what I felt happened because the defense had cleared. And then it felt like I was in it long enough that this, yeah, this new part of me was taking up space and growing.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, that,
Our field is like this just sometimes I feel like our whole field of counseling is getting too heady and wants to go too fast for people and wants to like just I don't know, get us all doing CBT to think differently and on stuff that may or may not work for it. But this stuff makes me believe again that our field has progressed and it is developing and deepening and it's so hopeful.
yeah, it's exciting. It, and then I feel like when with that type of like getting to the root, like what's the nervous system holding on to, and working with that, then the CBT part all kind of,
Then we can do it.
then we can do it.
Then
Yeah.
we can do it. You know what I always found? I always found for myself, and I noticed it with lots of clients over the years, I had a little window at the end of sessions where I would do some work on my whatever it was, whatever shit of the day it was, maybe about the past. I would do this deep sort of emotional stuff or whatever. And then at the last 5 minutes of the session is when I could let in all the cognitive reprocess, restructuring ideas. And
Yep.
they would just go right in and they would stick. And I would use that for homework in between.
Right.
I just couldn't. I've had a resentment against CBT for so long. I think because I have had complex PTSD and I just could not get my brain to do what CBT wanted me to be able to do. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So then I felt like a failure as a client because everybody raves about CBT and how effective it is and how, well, mostly the medical community, let's face it, but
Mhm.
lots of people. And so then I'm like, why is it not working on me then?
Right. Yeah. It is. It just gets CBT. That's what I remember reading the Burns. It was
Right.
yellow. It was this yellow
Yeah.
book,
The
and I read,
feeling good, wasn't it called?
yeah, feeling good inventory or something.
Yeah, and
And
it was really
yeah,
small print.
yes, so small. Yeah.
Oh, academic. Yeah.
Yeah. I could label the thought, but it the distress was having the thoughts, not me. I wasn't choosing to have those thoughts, but my lens was,
Exactly.
yeah, my
Me
lens was,
too.
yeah.
Like when when I'll speak for myself, but I also want to globally speak for everyone. Just
Mhm.
putting that out as a disclaimer. When people have a lot of trauma, when I was in the midst of trying to navigate trauma, there was no choosing any of it.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't choose to think a different way. I couldn't choose. I was losing my mind is how I felt when it all came up. Like there was no possible way for me to think my way through anything.
Mhm. Yeah, because it it's stored in a scattered way.
Right.
And so you can't pick up one piece and think through it and think that that's gonna, I don't know. Yeah, it's just the assumption that thinking your way through it reinforces like, then I can't, then, I can't do this, or it's not working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a loser as a client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's other times where those kind of cognitive interventions are so great for me. Like they tend to be the things I do on myself when I can't get to therapy
Yep.
because they're kind of like practical and helpful but there was no way it could take on the trauma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I sometimes I describe EMDR as it's like a very right-brained, it's in the body, and emotions are on the right side. And so it's very, they, I think more with kids, I'll say like emotions don't have a brain. Like emotions, like sad knows how to feel sad, mad knows how to feel mad. They don't know all these facts. Um, and when someone's holding on to the hand buzzers or doing EMDR, I feel like it's a link where all the practical cognitive information can land because it's helping the sad or the trauma or it's helping it opens its eyes and listen. And then they can hear all the cognitive pieces but you need
Mm,
that link. So it's like,
love that.
yeah, linking the left and right. So it's, yeah, CBT
Magical.
in the right moments.
Yeah. Yeah. The last 5 minutes when the person is in their body and the mind is not hijacked with trauma. And yeah.
Yeah.
How has being a counselor changed you?
Um, what? Oh goodness, how has it changed me? Um, I feel like it's made me more empathetic and more curious, I think all the time. Just of like, yeah, curious all the time. Um, Sometimes I think because you're on so much, sometimes I feel like it has sped me up a little bit, but then So I have to be mindful of like slowing down sometimes to ground myself so that I can, because sometimes it's not, that's what a client needs is you to be grounded and to gift all the
Mhm.
space not to be doing something. But I think that was more at the beginning. I felt in the beginning years, I was just nervous because I was just learning it all. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but more recently, I feel like it's made me a lot more appreciative of, yeah, just um, appreciative of, yeah, everything that I am going through, other people are going through, that everyone has their stuff. It just looks different. And so I feel like
Yeah.
I can see that, or I know that, and I feel lucky about that. Yeah. Because I think you asked me once, you asked me if there was diabetes or there were two other things. Again, if I could go back and pick again. And then I remember saying like I would pick diabetes again. And then that really struck me as like, yeah, it's this big thing for me, but it's also like it's just my thing. And I know it so well now. And everyone would probably have that hard thing that they might pick again. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's the saying, isn't it? Like if I don't know where that came from, but if you put all the troubles in the world in a big pile,
Yeah.
including your own, and you could go and pick any problem, most people end up picking their own problem back.
Okay. Okay.
I guess it's like over time, maybe it changes. I don't, would I? I don't know. Would I pick my own problem back? I don't know. But you get to that point, I guess, in life where you don't know who you'd be without it anymore.
hmm hmm
Like that's so much probably of who you have come to be and why you became a therapist and what like it's shaped you, I bet.
hmm hmm To sometimes and then you feel when you do work with kids and families a lot, then I feel sometimes I have too, I wonder about that as a mom, and I wonder if I'm thinking about things too much and all, like, I don't know.
Oh my God. Let's talk about what it's like to be a therapist and a mother. Our
Woo!
poor kids.
Yeah, I know.
I just like worry about so many things. I often say to my husband, I wish I was either a bus driver or a plumber because I don't think they're fucking themselves over in their head all day long about their parenting. Maybe they are, but this
Yeah,
profession, it's
yeah.
deadly, isn't it?
Yeah, you just I try to notice it when it comes up and try to yeah, just I don't know, notice it. But yeah, that feels the toughest. Um that feels the toughest. But working in
What part of it?
um maybe it's the I think it's the moments where you and I feel like well, sometimes you go into like sharing an idea or something like validation with a family and helping their child feel seen and heard, and that will bring down their emotion, and then they'll have more space to dot 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 do what's next. And
Mm.
then you know that and you've seen it work with all these other families, but then it's not working at home, and then I just feel bad.
And then you just go home and yell at your kids.
And then I'm like, well, I was validating myself and I was yeah, you just so feeling bad and being like, and then feeling guilt after that. I know what I could have done there and I didn't do it. Um,
Oh, yeah, I know.
yeah.
That's
And
because we're not counselors at home.
yeah, no,
And our kids are the first to tell us that,
yep,
nor
yeah,
do they want us to be.
no, but yeah, they're coming to, yeah, I think I used to think having little babies was hard and busy, and it's just a different type of, it's moving into that like pre-teenage years. You're like, okay, here we go. Uh,
Mm,
I think it's always just hard. It's just different in each phase. And so, yeah, we're in the middle
yeah.
of shifting to a new phase. So, yeah, dot, dot, dot. I don't know. See what happens.
Yeah.
I think that the line about I think I wrote about it earlier on dot 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 what happens next is what matters. And so I use that to my advantage often. So if I do yell, then I try to go in for an awkward hug, even if they're still mad at me. And I'm like, I don't want to hug. I'm like, I know, but I think
And
it's
you're referring to that EFFT thing of it's not about what happens, it's what happens next. That
yeah.
really it's so good because that gives us all kinds of permission to screw right up, which of course we do at every opportunity.
Uh,
I remember one time with one of my kids, I won't say which one, but anyway, they were really struggling with some anxiety. And I remember I was laying in bed saying good night, and we were like cuddling. That's when they were little, like elementary school, I think around 7. And I remember, like, honestly, just saying, I wish, I know that I'm a therapist for kids and this is what I do for a living, but I really wish I knew any idea of how to help you, but I have no idea. And my kid was like, what? I came to my own kids. I'm like, I don't have a clue.
yeah. We're in it. And then it's, yeah, gotta go talk to someone else to be like, what are you seeing?
Yeah,
Yeah. Goodness.
I know.
Yeah.
Scary. What do you think in this work you need sanctuary from? Like, if sanctuary is like this safe haven and, kind of the safe harbor where you go to rest, like, what is it? What's taxing for you about being a therapist?
Um, holding space, I think, for people is hard. Um, but not in I don't notice it being hard in the moment because I love it. Uh,
Right.
but then my nervous system, I think I hold on to it so much that then it can be heavy. So, but then I think I fit in all this time to like go cross country skiing in the middle of my day. I feel like that's where I go and I just like I move it out and I think about I don't know, I just reflect a lot. Nordic Center in the winter or dog walking in the spring summer and I feel like that helps fuel more space like hours later.
Mhm.
So,
Well
good
said.
sanctuary.
Because I totally agree with you. Like, it isn't that we don't want to hear it from our clients because that's why we're in this work. We love it, right?
Mm.
Love
Yeah.
it. Like, I feel energized after a day of seeing clients and fucking exhausted. But the
Mhm.
exhaustion is, it's not because it's hard. What they give us is hard. It's because it's the human condition and the darkness of life and the pain and the sorrow. Like, we metabolize it with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we want to, and it is
Yeah.
which is why I'm so grateful for those that type of work that does honor that we can do it with you and we can um I love just I always talk about EMDR.
Yeah.
I
I love
love
it.
how it's their body doing the work and their body dissolving or reprocessing the memories. And so I actually find since EMDR, I feel less taxed or I feel less of that drain because it, they're doing all the work
Yeah.
and you don't have to figure it out. Like their body knows what it's doing.
Right.
So and then I have so much trust in that and trusting that I think fuels that that fuels me. Um,
Yeah.
so I lean into that a lot, but it's still, it's like,
Like, I think if we had done this interview 5 years ago, you would have been crying through the whole thing.
oh yeah, yeah, I know.
You're so good at crying. I used to feel jealous because you could just cry like a tap.
I know. I've actually stopped.
You haven't cried.
I know. I almost did a little bit earlier whenever something's really meaningful and not that, like, I almost felt it earlier. I was like, oh, I'm gonna cry because we're talking about like just how meaningful this work is, and I could feel it. But since DBR, I have not been crying as much.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And my someone I go to for acupuncture, he said that he was needling a different person. He felt like I used to be
Oh,
sensitive and my file said sensitive, and he said that's not who I just needled today. It was amazing. And so I told him
my
about
God.
DBR and he said I could feel it.
Wow.
I know, I know. So, yeah, the crying
And hey, I love crying and I loved your crying. When you
oh,
were with um our team when you were a student, we had you as a student. I loved it because you brought such a depth to our sharing. So it's not like we're saying crying's bad because it's fucking not, but
yeah. I cry
some,
with clients a lot. I feel like that was told to me. I think I told you that too, that I was told that I had to work on my crying. And then I think you just told me, no, you don't. And
no,
then
you
that
don't.
permission right there, I was like, I'm just going to cry with people.
Yes,
Just,
why not?
yeah,
I
being,
had I had a Dr. Carl Tom who was a psychiatrist. I maybe said this to you at the time. I remember being in a training with him years ago, 20 years ago. And I remember he said, just don't be the first one to cry. Let the client start the crying and then you can join them.
okay.
But
Thank you.
it throws people off if you start crying first.
I feel like that might be one for the crier in me that I probably heard that 5 years ago, and it's probably very timely that I just heard it again. So thank you.
But I've had therapists who I've seen cry, and yeah, I found it really touching. I felt like they really were with me.
Mhm. Yeah. It's
There's
like
so much
sometimes you
healing.
can't, the crying speaks a whole, like I'm speechless and I'm just crying because that says a lot about what I'm, yeah, hearing you say. So, yeah.
Is this what you thought we'd talk about?
I, you, I think I used to teach spin classes and I'd go in, this was before counseling, and I'd go in and I'd have everything written out down to like this song, 46 seconds in, you're going to start a 30-second climb. And I had I was so stressed. And then I started and then I went and did the practicum, and then you were just like, you don't have to know what, like, just whatever's in the room, like just be present. And ever since then I would teach spin classes a lot differently actually if I still did that, but I don't.
Cool.
Yeah. Um because I also, so I didn't answer your question. This is, I don't know, I would just, this,
Came in open.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pick us a card. I love picking cards. One of my favorite things. Okay, these just have questions. Let's see what we get.
Yeah,
We can both answer it. How about that?
great.
Unless I hate the question, in which case we'll put it back.
You're We're allowed to pass.
We are. Oh, what do I want most in life? What do you want most in life, Lauren?
See, and then this is what I'll cry. Uh, like to laugh with my girls. I feel like that's like the best thing. It's just like it was my birthday yesterday.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, happy birthday. I saw that.
thank you. And then we just had this fun little dance party in the, like, that was the best part of the day is one of my friends got me this fur ridiculous dress up hat that when we were dressing up on the ski hill or something. And so we put that on, and then the three of us were just dancing and laughing, and that, yeah, that's what I want.
Oh, I love that. You're gonna
Yeah.
make me cry.
Oh.
What do I want most in life? Ooh, that is big. Well, what came to my head when you were talking was I always wanted my kids to grow up in a house they felt safe in
Hmm.
and for me to feel safe. And I do. I feel safe in my own house, which
Hmm.
took a long time. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, last thing. Um, let's play word association.
Okay. Okay.
I say a word and you say the first word that comes to your mind.
This scares me. Just to put that out there. Now I was
What
fine.
is the worst that could happen?
Uh, yeah. I just sometimes I feel like I'm weird, and so then I would say something weird. But you told
I
me,
wouldn't like you as much if you weren't weird. Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready?
yep,
Let's start easy. Dog,
Tilly. That's my dog right now.
daughters,
Love.
diabetes.
Whoa. The first word that came into my brain was peacefulness.
What?
Yeah, I was just like slowing it down. Yeah, that's weird. Because I
Okay.
feel like diabetes slows me down. Like it's this constant reminder of just
Oh,
slow down. And yeah, anyways, so that good one.
cool. Okay, well
Yeah.
then here's my next word.
Yeah.
Healing.
Like vagus nerve just came up. Yeah, nervous system.
Mom,
Like cuddles, hugs just came up.
pain,
Mm, diabetes just came up, but yeah, that's fine.
crying.
Release.
Let's stop there.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being here. I loved it.
I love just talking to you. I feel like that, yeah, I was like, whoa, wow, we are just, yeah, that didn't feel like an hour. Goodness.
No, we're
Yeah,
in it. We could
yeah,
nerd out about therapy
yeah,
forever.
yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, I feel like my cheeks hurt from smiling. So thank you.
Yay. That's awesome. Now I'm more convinced than ever that I need to go do EMDR training. I had been resisting it, but only out of rebellion and went a different way because I thought everybody's doing it. But I can see why because it is so effective. EMDR and DBR next on my list, thanks to you. You
Yeah.
should get commission.
No, but I have some good yeah, there's a I don't know, there's a couple of trainers that it like you get into the body work of it. And then I feel like it is that natural link with hypnotherapy too, right? That's
Yeah. Oh, I think it's, and art. You know, I'm a big
yes.
art therapy person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do amazing things with that combo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, take care and thanks for being here, Lauren.
Thank you, Jen.